someone was playing like the music really loud and it was rap music, so it was cursing and whatnot. And somehow I managed to get all the blame for it. And I think I just kind of kicked off. So much so that became the basis for like a rap that I ended up writing, but I can't repeat the words in that either. So, yeah.
Right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast Chatzzz. Got a very special guest today, Scott Reynolds. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, good to be here, Adam. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I think you were nominated by Michael, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So I always get the short straw with things like this and Michael. But I think there was a little bit of a reason behind it. I've recently been appointed sales director for the company. So I thought, well, you've got a bit more responsibility now, so it's on the podcast.
Yeah, because I seen your post the other day, wasn't it? And that was a good post, wasn't it? On LinkedIn.
No, thank you. I'd kind of had that one sat for a little while because we hadn't kind of made it common knowledge. And yeah, I mean, it was true what I wrote. I've had a bit of not checkered history, but I've not really stuck at many things. If I don't think it's the right fit, I'm willing to just go, right, nah, this isn't right, and move on, and kind of been rewarded for sticking with this through the good times and the bad. And yeah, no, I'm really happy with the promotion.
Nice. That's right. If you're meeting someone for the first time, so anyone that's watching or listening that doesn't know who you are, how would you introduce yourself for the first time? I didn't prep you for this, but you're on the spot.
No, fine. So I just, is this part?
Yeah. So like if somebody's watching or listening and they think, Scott Reynolds, who is this guy? How would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'd generally just sort of introduce me by my name and my job title and things. So, hi, my name's Scott Reynolds. I am the sales director for Lease Your New Car in Carlisle.
Nice. And then the 3 facts. So I messaged you last night, didn't I? And you said...
you kindly reminded me at 10 o'clock last night about this. 3 facts.
You said you struggled with one of these as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I think one of them's just, so it's a bit of a pointless fact really. But so anyone who knows me knows that the one thing that gets brought up the most and that I get the mick taken out of me for the most is this record deal that I had. I'm trying to think how old I'll have been. I must have been about 16-ish, somewhere around there. Definitely didn't drive. So yeah, 16, say. And a record label launched in Carlisle. They were trying to relaunch a gentleman that I've become friends with, Stephen Dunn. Relaunching his career. He was in a band called the Daisy Chain Connection many years before. And quite random how it all kind of came about. I'd done Panto the year before that, bit of a thespian. And part of the Panto had a section that was filmed in it. And the person that used to direct that was also the person who ended up getting employed to film this music video. So when they asked, do you know any young lads that could be in the music video? He said, yeah, I know someone who's perfect. I went along, ended up in this music video. Both my sisters are really, really good singers, far better than I've ever been. And the record label knew, and they started asking me questions about my sisters. And I just said, well, it must run in the family. I can hold a tune. And next day I was in the old JJB, you know, when it had the basketball court.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call. It was the owner of the record label. And he just was like, you know, you said you can sing. Do you want to come down and sing? So I went down, sang, took like a few, I think, Craig David CDs, some other stuff that I like wrote my own sort of raps and that over.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. I'm not doing any of them for you. And yeah, kind of one thing led to another. We did this record deal, but in reality, all that ended up being was some free clothes for a photo shoot. I went down to, I forget what it's called now, Parr Street Studios down in Liverpool. That's where like Coldplay had just done X and Y there, I think, or whatever album it was. Paolo Nutini's recorded there. So it was a pretty cool experience. Then we had like a launch night, so I got a free bar at that because I was like VIP.
Even though you're 16.
And it went in the newspaper. But that, like, literally once all that happened, that was just it. That was the end of my record deal. So whether or not they saw the light, or realize eventually my balls are going to drop, I don't know. But yeah, that was the end of that.
Is there any clips or videos anywhere?
One of my cousins constantly sends me the newspaper cutting. The headline was, he's got a smile like Bex and an attitude like Robbie Williams. Couldn't this be Carlisle's next pop sensation? Yeah, so he has that still. I think he's still got it pinned on his wall or something. He ratchets it out all the time. But yeah, that's about the extent of that.
That's quite cool though, isn't it?
If you say so.
Hey, it's a good story to tell if you ever go on a random podcast and you have to think of 3 facts to yourself.
Yeah, the others look a bit crap, but
I know that because when we did videos, that was one of the videos, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was thinking of you saying that'll surprise me, but I'm thinking, I already know this one, but I suppose not.
Yeah, that's funny. Right, the second one then. How are you going to top that?
This is quite random, but not that many people, or a lot of people, don't realise that I'm mixed race. A lot of people just think I absolutely smash the sunbeds. And don't get me wrong, I'm partial to a sunbed, but even if I didn't have one, I wouldn't be white. So like on my mum's side, he's predominantly white. So like English, Irish and Italian. And on my dad's side, that's where the colour comes in. So there's predominantly Indian on that side. And going back a few generations ago, on the Indian side of my family, I've actually got a gold medal in the Olympic Games for field hockey. So yeah.
That's the entertainment. It's an Indian one, is it?
Yeah, so that was for field hockey in the Olympic Games. Can't remember what like generation of being a relative he is, but yeah.
Oh, that's cool, actually.
Not many people will be able to say that.
Yeah, so then where does the Reynolds name come in then?
So yeah, we think, I'm pretty sure that it stems from like, because we've got some Australian in us as well. And what kind of happened was when people, after various wars and stuff, decided to settle in India and countries like that, they'd have met like, so an Australian man's met an Indian wife, they've had children and they would be called Anglo-Indian. So they're like mixed race Indians.
Okay.
And that's where, because the wife would have took the Australian name, that's where the Reynolds would have.
Makes sense. All right, cool. And then the third one?
This is just weird, but I was really struggling for ideas. There was a few that I thought of and then I just kept deleting them as I was like typing them out. So like, strangely enough, I've got like I remember my long-term memory is full of absolutely useless things, like lyrics to songs from like the 90s or hymns from primary school. But like, tell me to do something in 5 minutes time and there's a very good chance that I'm going to forget to do it. But that in its own right has served us quite well because generally speaking, if I read something over and over again, or if I watch something or listen to something over and over again, I can recall it almost word for word. Yeah. So like in exams, for example, if we were prepping for certain exam questions we knew were likely to come up, I would literally prep like a 2, 3, 4 page answer to that question and read it a few times, then bullet point it. Then using the bullet points alone, I'd be able to rattle off pretty much word for word exactly what I'd written out first time round. But yeah, it's just a bit weird really. But
is that like a photographic memory?
Not quite photographic.
Yeah.
That's kind of snapshotty, but yeah, like basically repetition is like important for me to learn stuff. So if I do that, it'll end up sinking into my long-term memory and use up all this space that I could be probably better off thinking about then what quote I need to do for the next few days.
That's quite handy though.
Yeah, it was good. I went back to college a few years ago. We did like an access to higher education course and they pretty much said, it was for my like psychology exam. They pretty much said like, it's only going to be like one of these, I think there was like 3 or 4 questions that are going to be like your main one in this main exam. So they said, so essentially if you could prep good answers for each, when one comes up, it will be one of these or it's very unlikely to not be. So I did. And then literally once I flipped the exam question over, seeing which question it was, did my bullet points. And I'd say if that was 1,000 words, I'd be surprised if more than say 20 of them were different to what I originally wrote down from that bit of paper. But so yeah, it's just how I learned stuff.
That's a bit weird, but it's quite cool as well at the same time. Right, let's go back to a little Scott. First memories growing up, what were you like?
So first memories, I'm trying to think. I know I wasn't a very good swimmer. I remember not learning to swim until I was late on. I remember I really always got into football, but I didn't even really play football that early, sort of. Never for a team anyway. Kind of that came sort of the very back end of primary school. In the secondary school, did I play it more? Like I obviously played at the park and in people's gardens and stuff, but never for a team. I remember my dad watching Tottenham play. I think it was a 91 FA Cup, so I'll have been nearly 6. And I remember sort of saying, "No, what's this?" And he's like, "That's your team, son," because he's Cockney.
Oh, wait, interrupting. What do you think about Harry Kane going to Bayern Munich?
Well, he's not gone yet. He has to agree terms. I don't know. I can see it happening, but I could also just see like a mad curveball.
Yeah, didn't he say something like he doesn't want to go after the season starts something?
Yeah, so that's kind of why it's all been pushed through now, because obviously our first game's not till the weekend. But ultimately the ball's back in his court. I'd be gutted to see him go, and he's irreplaceable. And it's not my money, so if it was up to me, I'd say, knock the money back and let him go for free on the off chance he stays and signs a new deal. But no, I say, obviously, I'd love him to stay. But we'll just have to see what happens.
Be interesting. By the time this podcast is out, well, no.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? Right, the prediction. Do you reckon he's going to go or stay?
Heart says stay. Head says go.
Right. So then your dad said Spurs are your team then.
Yeah, so that was that. So I kind of remember that early doors of me ended up knowing that I needed to support Spurs. I didn't get a choice in it. Unlike the dilemma I'm going through at the minute with my youngest boy. He's getting fought for Tottenham and Newcastle because the in-laws are all massive Newcastle fans and the missus, to be fair. But yeah, so but you won't get a choice in it. You'll be getting bought Tottenham stuff. You'll be growing up at Tottenham.
It's be difficult at the moment, isn't it? Because if like Newcastle do well in the Champions League,
well, it just end up being like what most of the Man City fans and that are like now, isn't it? Or even going further back, Man United fans and Chelsea fans were, where if he was just all about that, then fair enough. But the one thing I keep getting thrown at us is, Newcastle's only an hour away, so you'll be able to get more games than that. You can go to one game a season at Newcastle, and that's Tottenham away.
So yeah, so starting to spot Tottenham. So how old were you then?
I think, 6-ish. I remember getting kits early on, like sort of Holstein-y ones. And I think this was before they stopped like children having kits with alcohol or betting and stuff on. So I remember having those kits growing up. And yeah, what I was a child, I remember being like quite clever at school. And I think I did school going kind of jumping forward. I think I did school a bit backwards. Like I was really swotty almost through primary school, year 7, year 8, year 9. And then when it really mattered to be swotty, I wasn't swotty. Like come year 10 and 11, it was more like, just football, girls, the parties and whatnot.
That's what it's like, though, isn't it? When you're like 14, 15, 16, you get exposed to like girls and like house parties and that kind of thing.
A bit different come that age. But going back, this was actually nearly one of my facts. Like in year 6, I had to redo my SAT and I had to sit year 9 ones.
Really?
Because I'd scored too highly in my year 6 SATs that they worried. Well, not worried, but they thought, how would he have done if he'd sat the year 9 ones?
Really?
Now, so
how did you in the year 9
I ended up getting offered a scholarship to go to Friars. They were like, he doesn't need to pay tuition fees and that, and wanted me. And I remember my dad saying to us, Friars want you to go to school there. And I said, do they play football? And they didn't play football. So I was like,
nah, I went to Austin Prize year 7 to 11, right? The only time my parents got called into the school was in year 11 when you could play football. And I was like, I want to play football. They're like, no, you have to play rugby. And they called my parents in and they were like, just wants to play football in PE. And they're like, no, he has to play rugby.
I mean, I played rugby in PE and that at secondary school, but it would never be a sport that I was particularly great at or that I wanted to pursue. So
Dad says the only thing I learned from Austin Prize was how to play rugby. Apart from that, I didn't learn anything.
To be fair, loads of kids went to, like, when you were in primary and then you go all your different ways. I think most of them ended up more off the rails than half of us going to like a normal secondary school.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
So what do you reckon your parents would have said about you then growing up? If I asked them, what do you think they would say?
I think that overall, I think I'd have been a good boy that everyone kind of like nice mannerisms about me, caring and whatnot. And then I think that the later I got in life and the more I started playing football in the house and smashing windows and throwing action men out windows on bungee cords that end up smashing back through other windows. Yeah, then they probably thought, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? But no, overall, I think,
Yeah. I hope. What did you want to be when you were growing up? Did you want to be a footballer like everybody else?
Yeah, I think that's always the thing in that, like all young lads that are kind of semi-decent at football think, oh no, I want to be a footballer. But the curveball ambition that I would never have had the ability to pursue was law. Yeah, I think once I realised that I could like kind of talk my way almost out of stuff and like in maybe arguments or confrontation and stuff, I was quite good at arguing basically. And I thought, it'd be great to be a lawyer and essentially get paid to represent a case, like essentially your argument for something like why that's right or wrong. But and academically, without blowing my own trumpet, if I'd probably really, really been focused on that, it probably would have been semi-viable. But no, I know the amount of effort you put in and going to uni and whatnot, by the time it would have been a decision I needed to make, so I was like way off that.
Yeah, it's hard graft, isn't it? Do you have to do like 7 years or something?
Yeah, I think it's like 5 minimum, maybe more. But I know I've got some mates that have pursued it in various capacities. Yeah, obviously doing really well for themselves, and here's me.
Yes, you're sales director.
Yeah.
So then did you leave school at 16 or 18, or what was the plan when you were like leaving school?
So I went to sixth form, but I think I did like a couple of months into year 13. Like so I basically completed year 12.
Like AS
this
level?
Was when that had just kicked in. I think it was like an AS level, that was kind of like half an A level, then you did it on. And then I ended up getting kicked out of sixth form. I can't even remember what happened, you know. I was getting into trouble for just random things, like they give you that flexibility of not going to lessons and stuff. So I think I maybe took the mick a bit with that. I remember one day, some people were just playing, our common room wasn't out the way. It was kind of like a section of the main dining hall.
Okay.
So like people like would be coming and going, or like being there for lunch while the older lot were playing pool or whatever they were doing. And I think we had like a boombox, like a small CD player.
Yeah.
And someone was playing like the music really loud, and it was rap music, so it was cursing and whatnot. And somehow I managed to get all the blame for it. And I think I just kind of kicked off. So much so that became the basis for like a rap that I ended up writing, but I can't repeat the words either. So
So you got kicked out, then you wrote a rap.
Yeah, about everything that had gone on.
Yeah. Did you release that on like YouTube then? Or?
No. I'd love to find my old notebooks and that with all this stuff in. But yeah, there was a couple of teachers' names getting mentioned in there and what happened in school, and it was to the tune of Nelly Ride With Me. I could actually, madly enough, I could probably rattle the majority of that off right now. So
you going to give us any?
Re-emphasize.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's hard though, isn't it? Like when you say like 16, 17, 18, to know what you want to do, isn't it?
Yeah, so you go on all them like kind of career things, courses and whatnot. And like, then you get put on work experience, and it's kind of like, strangely enough, like I sort of found sales in a roundabout way. It was, a lot of people could sell. Some people are maybe better at it than others, but it isn't like really a profession. It's not something you train for. So I think even going back sort of 10, 15 years ago, if someone had said to me, like, what do you want to be? I'd just still be like, I don't know. And that's as like a sort of 25 plus person, never mind at sort of 14, 15. So yeah, no, it's really hard. And I think that I do think we do things almost backwards. And I know that we have to do it that way because in later life, you wouldn't have the energy in that to work quite as much. But this whole like trying to retire at 70 or 80, probably by the time we do, to then have 10 years to spend your money. And I'm like, well, I'd rather have had that money when I was 20 or 30 and enjoy it and be able to see the world and do stuff and that. But I get that's just the way it goes. And I think that the country would probably be in even worse shape if you just let 20-year-olds do everything that they wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's hard, isn't it? Like, especially if people have like kids in their 20s, then it does like kind of limit what they can do, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. I had Sophia's 9 now. That was 2014. So obviously I wasn't a young dad as such, 29, maybe somewhere around there. 29, 30. So I wasn't particularly young, but yeah, a lot of people do. And it's like, that's nice. Getting pics of that point on it.
So what was your first job then?
My first job, other than a paper round, I worked on papers for years and years. I had a really hard paper round, so much so my dad gave me a lift on it. So like my dad used to get up every morning and drive me on my paper round. And when I say it was hard, it was maybe about a mile long and it was in statics. Wouldn't have been hard at all. We had a little pug, a black pug called Peter at the time, and Peter knew the route. Peter would come in the car and he'd get out of the car every time we were going like moving 10 houses down the road and doing a few papers. He'd get out and he'd run to the driveway and door of like the next house he delivered to. So, and yeah, my dad used to drag me out of bed for that. And I think, you got paid like maybe a tenner a week or whatever.
Big buck back then.
But to be fair, then I did actually start, even as little as money as that was, it was that money that helped me save for like my first car as I was learning to drive. And so I got a good understanding of money and saving pretty early doors. But my first job, more full-time sort of job, was at JD Sports. I was on £3 and a penny an hour as I must have been about 16-year-old, £3 and a penny an hour. And then Original Shoe Company poached me for a pay rise of 49 pence an hour. So I went up to £3.50 and I thought, I get paid like another £4 a day. Like, this is ace.
How did they poach you then? How does that come about? Is that like
friends and my cousin worked there, and I knew that the wage was a little bit more. And It's that. And to be fair as well, I mean, I still like to this day wearing sports clothes, and I still like shopping in JD, to be fair. But it was also at that stage where I'm starting to go out of town and stuff. So it was ideal because then I was getting discount on like designer clothes, tracksuits and stuff. So my trainer collection was already peak. Sorted. And then, starting to wear your labels and your Rockports and getting discount on them was handy, to be fair.
Yeah. Because how old were you then? You were like 16?
16, 17. So going out probably illegally. And I was so baby-faced as well then that I've had a hard 18, 19 year, like it's caught up on me. But yeah, I shouldn't have ever been able to get into the clubs, but like everyone, you just do somehow.
Yeah, even when I first started going out, like say when I was 17, maybe went out a few times and you could get away with it. But like these days you couldn't.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I think it's more strict basically unless you're a girl. It's still definitely lassies in.
Yeah.
Lads.
So then what was your first like full-time job, do you reckon? Proper job?
Proper job.
Not that JD or whatever isn't a proper job, but...
So my first, well actually I was either 17, I think I was a month off turning 18 when I got as far as brands and whatnot is concerned, my first big job, and that was a trainee sales exec at Mercedes-Benz.
Okay.
So so I got that job. Another one that's crazy when I think back, so I was kind of this trainee, and the fact that I was younger than where like the cut-off was to pay you properly, and I don't know if it was buttered up as an apprenticeship or what, but as a trainee there, I was on $6,000 a year, and I worked 12 days on, 2 off. So I would work basically Monday through to Sunday, through to the following Friday, without any days off, and then I'd have a weekend off.
What? So you're getting 2 days off every other week?
Days. So I was on
$6,000
peanuts, and because I was only a trainee, it was kind of like that whole you do as much as you can, but really you were there to learn how to do it. But then like you kind of help the senior sales execs when they're busy, and so you speak to their customers, but then ultimately they are still their customers, so you hand them back over.
Sure.
So I sold a few cars, like sort of as I was getting months and months down the line, my confidence grew and whatnot. So I sold a few cars eventually.
But how did that job come about to start off with then? Just like, did you just get
advertised? I can't remember.
Did you be just like sick of working in shoot or whatever, or?
Yeah, I think it was more like, that was probably the first time in my life where I started thinking, because again, if you think that as much as you're in retail in like a shop, that's probably when you first realize that you're capable of selling. Yeah. I know a lot of people, because you go back then, I was on commission, for example, at Original Shoe. You had sales targets at JD Sports. Like, when you're in somewhere like JD and then the member of staff goes, "Oh, do you want me to put that behind the till for you?"
Yeah.
They're not actually doing that to aid you. They're doing that because then it goes against their name when it gets put through the till. So they'll have a target to sell. So the lads who are on the trainers, and the target will be miles higher because they know that like it only takes 10 pairs of £100 trainers to get sold in the whole day on a Saturday, and you've done your grand or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So then it was Original Shoe, and that was when, again, you're on commission to sell, but also to sell store cards. So you start getting an understanding that, like, I'm capable of selling here. So then when this job came up, and I kind of looked at it as, in the short term, right, I'm going to take a hit on the amount of income I'm getting. But bear in mind, I was going from $3.50 an hour, so it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
But then in the long run that some of them lads in there, and this is going back, what's that, maybe 2000-ish? No, can't be that early. 2005. What age am I now? 38, 17, 21. Right. So yeah, 2002 maybe, something around there. You know that the sales execs, they're driving the big flash cars. You know that they're doing well for themselves. And I just thought, well, yeah, fair enough, I'm a trainee now, but soon I won't be. And in the long run, that'll be a good job. And then to be fair, going back to Mercedes, I learned off the late Stuart Payton. He was kind of my mentor there. And I learned so much about what good customer service looked like, that I actually think I think I've got this written, or I used to have it written on my cover letter on my CV, that it stood me in good stead for like anything that I've ever had to do in the future. Because you learn that it wasn't just a guy in the suit that was coming in to buy the 100-gram Merc. Like the farmers that stunk of crap, like they were just as likely to buy it, or the footballers that you've never heard of before that are just in kind of like shorts, a white t-shirt, a pair of sliders, like and you just had to not judge books by the cover, and like just learn to kind of treat everyone the same almost. And I've took that with me right throughout life.
I know somebody said to me, I can't remember who it was, but something about selling cars. Like if you just say if it's like a couple, and if you just fixate on, say, the man or whatever, you think he's going to buy it. Don't forget like the wife, because the wife could potentially be the one who's like,
who it's
buy the car for, or making the decision and that kind of thing.
Sometimes couples will dictate that to you, the way they're talking, who's leading the conversation and stuff like that. But yeah, it's important. And to be honest, sometimes as well, when you've got one decision maker, if you can convince one of them, you'll convince the other one anyway. So you might be getting grilled off one and you just go, but it'd be great for woman talking, or it'd be great for your golf clubs also, won't it? Like, and flip side, it's, that'll be lovely for, I don't want to sound sexist, but like, kind of, what do you know, you're shopping bags. Do you know what I mean? And actually going back to Merck, it was something I learned there as well, that the brand, if you work for a semi-decent brand, and no matter what brand it is, there'll be a certain client that'll fall into that bracket, and that's the top end of their budget. So for one person that might be Vauxhall, but for another person it might be Ferrari. Like, that's their top end. And it was also learning that, like, it's important to remember that it's the niece's dance is coming up, not that they're buying the car. It's like, how's daughter? She out of hospital yet? Like, it's that sort of thing, that like kind of that personal touch, because these people want to buy the car, and the only thing you can do is stop them, like, because you weren't good enough. Yeah. Because they can get that Merc from anywhere in the country, they don't have to get it from you. Or they can walk out and come a different day and speak to another sales exec. So as long as you do the job properly and you're polite and sort of take what they're saying on board and listen, like, half the battle's just shutting up, which I'm probably not that good at. But if you do, you just stop and listen and let them speak, and you'll learn things that are important.
So did your mentor teach you that then? Or
yeah, very much so. Stu, the Paytons it was always Paytons of Carlisle, Mercedes. And then Mercedes pretty much got took over all around the country. There wasn't any like privately owned Mercedes anymore. So it became Mercedes-Benz of Carlisle. It was still their building. They owned it. So they were kind of renting it too. And he was like part of the furniture there. Amazing, great guy. And yeah, it was good to work with him and good to learn from him. And he had a very unique style, always in his big flashy suits with like big giant lapels. He kind of looked dressed a bit like Tony Montana, like he was one of them. So not necessarily my style dress sense wise, but he pulled it off, and it's what everyone associated. And yeah, he was funny. I mean, I remember one day I was in the showroom and he'd just be walking about smoking. This was smoking hadn't been banned inside yet, but you definitely wouldn't have expected it in a showroom like a car show. People would say stuff to me. Like, I own the building. But one day I was showing this lady, an older lady, like back seats of a C-Class. And I think she came in like an SLK, it's like a 2-seat convertible at the time. And I had the door open and she was like leaning into it, and he goes, "Plenty of room in those back doors, love." And she just like, "Oh yes, Stuart, yes. Very spacious." And I'm there, just like falling, thinking, "Come on, man." Yeah, no, some good times there, good times. And
because then, still about the sales then, I'd imagine it's like, you have to find your own unique style, isn't it? I'd imagine like you can be taught so much, but like
so if I'd probably like jump forward there to sort of explain that a bit. So good salespeople will sell. They could sell any product in the world. It doesn't really matter, because the product's a product and they're them. So they'll be able to build relationships and sell. Just generally speaking, there's someone that wants that product from you, you've got to treat them right. But then you go to like a really big, and most main dealers will have some sort of sales training, sales processes that they send you on. And my time at Bristol Street, you went away for like the first thing you could do before you were allowed to sell or get access to systems and stuff. You had to go away for like 4 days on a training course, day in, day out, and learn the Bristol Street way. And it was very much, they had it in their head that it could be this perfect like sequence of events, like this parrot style selling. Yeah. And going back to my memory, I still remember so many of like their scripts that you were supposed to say when a customer said a certain thing. So customer walks on the pitch, I'm just looking, it's important to have a good look around there. Let me explain the layout of the pitch, blah, blah. And if you're bringing someone in who's got no experience whatsoever, and you teach them all of that, yes, it's definitely going to benefit them. It's going to help them to have a bit of structure.
Can mold them.
But if you're also a really good salesperson, adding that sort of roboticness to you could hinder you. And that's not to say you know better than someone else, because I bet you they paid some gurus millions of pounds to come up with these processes. And I'm not putting them down as a company at all. I enjoyed my time there. But ultimately, like you say, there's you can train someone to sell, but whether or not that person will ever be as good as someone who's just naturally gifted at selling. You quite often find with the really good salespeople, they won't necessarily be really good at admin. So you quite often know, particularly when you go into management and you've got sales execs like that, right, I might need to mop up a lot of stuff after you, but I know that 9 times out of 10 when you speak to a customer, you'll sell them a car, so I can deal with this. And yeah, I had that as well. I'd like to think I'm semi-decent at both, but the sales exec priority is always like sell the car, commission, move on to the next one. And all that stuff that comes behind the scenes, they kind of, oh God, that's like pain for them, do you know what I mean?
That's funny. So did you go straight from Merck to Bristol Street then?
No. So I had a random job after that. So my time at Merck was cut slightly short because I got caught speeding, and I wasn't even 19 yet. I'd had my license less than 2 years. The whole speeding scenario was really annoying. I'd got into work, I had a client that was due to pick up, I was due to get picked up from Newcastle Airport, and I got into work and I saw the driver who had asked to do it, and I was like, shouldn't you be in Newcastle? It was like, oh, I forgot. So then I just jumped in the next car fine and I just conked it through Newcastle and I got caught doing, it was like 119 mile an hour. So yeah, I lost my license for that. I'd left my job because internally they had this ban, like even while I was pending prosecution, they had this internal ban. So I couldn't drive. I could only drive cars in the showroom on the forecourt. I couldn't take customers out on test drive, even though at that point I still had a license. Then they turned around and sort of said, and because you're going to get banned, even when you get your license back, you won't be able to get your demo for X amount of time. And that was basically one of the big perks about working somewhere like that, even though I'd only had like an A class or maybe a C class at best.
So better than nothing though.
So yeah, so I left. We agreed to leave rather than get sacked or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then when I went to court, I had to go out to Hexham Court to like, not plead my case, but explain what I've just explained to you pretty much. I only ended up getting banned for like 45 days. And then by the time I'd gone, I'd actually had my license longer than 2 years by that point. So I didn't have to like reapply for a license or anything. I just basically couldn't drive for 45 days and then got it back and then back to square one. That's, you know.
Insurance through the roof.
Yeah, my next few cars were awful to insure. In fact, yeah, because I was always into kind of hot hatches back then. So, and then I remember buying a car, I can't remember which one it was now. I think it was a 206 GTI, and it was more to insure than it was to buy the car. I think I paid like maybe $5 or $6 for the car, and then more than that to insure.
Oh,
hey,
yeah. So where did you go after Merck then? When you said you had your random job?
I ended up working for like a vending machine company, not in sales or anything, just delivery driving. And you know something? I actually loved that job.
No pressure, no hassle.
Yeah, so like you have deadlines to meet. But I think I came in after maybe like an older person had been doing it, so it was kind of like they seen this the only ever just gets managers to get back just before finish. And I'm thinking, but then I was young and fit, and I'm like piling things on a trolley, and I'm running out of buildings and stuff. But yeah, it was kind of like, wasn't so much that it was job and knock, but you knew then like I can pull in somewhere, and it was like my routes were all around like Cumbria and Southwest Scotland and things. So there was scenic laybys, and you knew you plan your route and you think, I can get through that one day quick. I can have half an hour there for my lunch and by the sea or whatever it might be. And then you go back and you just load your van for the following day. And if you had loads of time, you'd give it a wash down or whatever it might be. And then just go again the following day. And they basically eventually just down the line, the job didn't exist. So I left there, and I can't think where I went to directly from there. I think it'll probably be Bannatynes. I think it'll have been by that age. It'll have been
in a sense.
Bannatynes. Well, no, not really. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was never really into the gym. I was in half semi-decent nick back then, but I was really just slim and leery. You know, I wasn't particularly strong or fit, but played football still and looked after myself relatively. But I was another sales job, so selling like the gym memberships. Did that for a year and then got promoted to sales and marketing manager. It's actually that job that I referred to in that post you were on about the other day about the sales director announcement. That's the only job that I've had for like a really long period of time, like similar to this one. I think I was there for about 5.5 years in total.
What did you enjoy about that job then?
I suppose it was one of the first times I'd had like uncapped earnings, and it wasn't on megabucks or anything like that. I was working with Duncan Bannatyne at the end of the day. There's only so much you're ever going to get paid. But yeah, it was one of the first times where I'd had uncapped earnings. So if you did sell a lot in a month, your wage would fluctuate and you got paid heavily on commission, but with still a decent basic. The perks of obviously having your gym membership and stuff, and it's only like 40, 50 quid a month, but that was for you and your family, like your partner. Or was it? No, I think at the time my partner paid for our gym membership separate actually, but yeah, it was just quite a nice enough environment to work in, nice clientele, generally speaking. You know, it was the right end of town for me. I always lived in Stanwick, so yeah, it was an easy job to kind of continue with it. Also, after the year of being a sales advisor, where I went into the sales and marketing manager's role, I then got to run the rotas.
Okay.
For my sales team. And I had a good little sales team. 2 lads one lad I was already good friends with, and another lad we'd become friends with. And he was doing he needed part-time around his degree that he was doing. So he only had set hours, so kind of I'd put him in, and then me and the other lad would work around each other. Basically, the office had to be covered sort of from, I want to say it was like from, I think the sales office kind of had to be covered from like 9 till 9 almost. So to have someone like an early, a mid and a late, and then the points where there was 2 or 3 in the office. So it meant you could sort of start being like, oh, well, if I give myself an early shift on a Friday and then off that weekend, I've kind of got a long weekend kind of. Yeah, I did a lot of shifts where I had to open up or close up, and it becomes kind of antisocial the hours you're doing, but the opening up was like you were kind of in for 5:45 and home by 2, you know, a day.
Half a day, yeah.
I suppose my biggest frustration ever there was got more and more into the gym. It was kind of like an extension of your working day.
You're still in there.
Still in the building. And because these were your paid members, it was kind of like if someone wanted to use a bit of kit and you were on it, it was very much the right thing to go, oh, you know, you jump on and out. So like sometimes like what should have been an hour, like it takes 2 hours, and sitting in the jacuzzi, it's very much like, oh, it's a bit cold in here tonight, Scott. And you know, it's very, and you think, come on, I'm just trying to relax now.
Yeah, I'm off the clock.
You understood that was going to happen.
But yeah, a lot must have changed in your time there then. You must have developed quite a bit as a person if you enjoyed that role as well.
I think it was probably my first time, it was definitely my first time where I've gone into more of a management role. It was the first time that someone's seen something in you to give you that kind of next step in your career, that progression. And yeah, and stuck it out, and we did really well. So this was around the time that Bannatyne's had just gone from Living Well to Bannatyne. So he bought out all the Hilton Living Well clubs. And it was very much like there was loads of turmoil within the club. You know, it was like members leaving, we're not going to get the nice shampoo anymore. And, you know, we're not going to have our towels for free anymore.
Is that what we were kicking off about?
There was sort of like your existing Living Well members were allowed to keep their terms, and then anyone new that came in. So a Living Well member left because, I'm not going to Bannatyne's, I'm leaving. But then came back, they would call us a Bannatyne once. It was kind of like we just had to steady that ship. And it had been like, I think in the Living Well days, it maybe sat always kind of around the 3,000 member mark. And then I think it had dropped to maybe, and I don't quote me on these numbers, but maybe around the 2,000 mark. So it took like this big dip. And then it was kind of like our aim was we had to focus on getting new members, but we also had to focus on retaining members. So it was the first time where I started learning like business speak of like KPIs and net gains, and, you know, it's kind of understanding that side of a business as well. And it was we and my team, we were responsible for delivering the first net gains in that company. So i.e. the number had grew month to month.
Oh, okay.
Since the takeover. And prior to that, it was kind of like every month you might sell 50 memberships, 400 were leaving, dropping by 50 that month, for example. But we were steadily growing. And I think that year we finished, it sounds minuscule, but we finished on a net gain of around 122, which only averaged to 12-ish a month. But when you think previously they were hemorrhaging sort of 600 to 1,000 a year, have that, it was like a 1,200 person swing. So it was, and that kind of was why they said, right, so I stuck it out and we kind of carried on that way. Then DW opened, well, what was DW, now Everlast, and everyone was crapping themselves. You know, they thought like the brand new gym in town is the only one that's kind of premium.
Got a swimming pool.
It's going to be a direct competitor. Decided to do loads of digging, and I ended up writing this like big USP analysis, so like unique selling points. And then we were like, do they do towels? We do, they don't. Like, and then just like going through and what sort of kit they had and what the membership prices were. And in the end, had to sit down in a meeting with Duncan Bannatyne and Nigel Armstrong, who was one of the other owners or directors at the time, and ended up getting a check signed off for over 600 grand for us to like reinvest in new kit and stuff and put changes into place. So yeah, so that was even having these meetings with these sort of people, and you start to feel like a little bit more important, a bit more grown up, and then getting that pressure put on you that like this isn't going to be a regional manager who's going to perform this, produce this document. You're doing it, and it's like, God, a bit daunting, but you soon learn that you're capable. And yeah, cool. I did mature quite a lot during that period of my life. Yeah, definitely.
Must be like cool knowing that they like trust you and like believing you to do that as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that since then I've had spells of it here and there, but this is probably fast forwarding sort of another 10 years down the line where it's like, it's happened again. It's kind of come full circle. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, cool. So then obviously you left Bannatyne's, didn't you? And then did you have a couple of jobs before you came here?
So there was that. Yeah. How long have we got?
As long as you want.
No, so Bannatyne's, another gym opened. So you got DW, and that's now established. It's been going 3 years, 4 years, however long it's been going. Then Lifestyle opened, and they were looking for a general manager. And I'd heard about this job, and I put my name in the hat for it. And
what does that mean? You applied for it, or
yeah. So essentially, yes. I knew they needed a general manager. Yeah. I was sales and market manager at like a premium health club in the town. I thought, right, yeah, this is the next step. If I'm going to stay in the leisure industry, this is the next step. And I'm not saying it's very, very unlikely I would still be at Bannatyne's. There's scope for it, but very unlikely. But I think you mentioned, when I was asking you what we were going to sort of chat about, was like mistakes in your career and stuff. That leaving there, or flirting with that job and eventually leaving or taking that job, was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made in my career. Solely because when you go from this like premium club where you've got almost as many managers as you've got staff, everyone's got a department and everyone runs like that.
Yeah.
To go somewhere like that budget concept, and this is nothing against the club, the facilities, the owners or anything like that. It's very much you become like a dog's body. Like you need to know everything. And if the toilet gets blocked, you're going to go and do it. You're a general manager. If the rotor needs done, you're doing it. If the profit and loss account needs done, you're doing it. If PT doesn't turn up, you're going to have to find a new one. Like it was, and you just spread yourself so thin that
very lean operation.
It was more of a sideways step than I could have imagined, considering I was changing my job title from like sales and market manager to general manager. I'm thinking like wage increase, more responsibility, but like, yeah, he probably needed another 3 or 4 managers underneath me. Like, that, would think of me and say, right, this is what we've done. And
that's interesting.
It was hard. It was hard. And to be fair, I don't even know how long I stayed. I think maybe about a year. I was there maybe about a year. So again, it was good to see this brand new state-of-the-art new concept for the child, this budget concept, being there when it was all brand new and shiny and all brand new kit and fingerprint technology to get in and out. And it was cool. And to be part of, like, I don't regret being part of it. But eventually I did sort of hold my hand up and go, listen, this isn't either what I set out, or maybe I'm not the right fit. And so
that's interesting. Yeah. So it's like expectations, isn't it? Like your expectations of that general manager role and didn't really meet your expectations, then you are a bit disappointed maybe and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it. It was kind of like, I'll be the first person to admit, like, especially we talked about this early on about how young people don't necessarily know what they do. I was still young. I'm still youngish now, but I was definitely still younger then. And you don't really know what you want to do. But one thing I did know was when I didn't want to do something.
Yeah.
Like, and if something just doesn't feel right, and I think life's quite short to be plodding away at something that your heart's not in, or that's not for you, or maybe it wasn't quite what you signed up for. And with that in mind, that's been the same for me in jobs as it has been in other walks of my life. I just go, right, no, I walk away from this.
I think it's important though, isn't it? Like, especially when you're younger, to just try things. And then if you don't like it, you think, oh, I don't like that, I'll try something else. At least you know you don't like something, and then you learn from it, don't you?
No, 100%. There was a point where on my CV, I'd look at it and go like, oh, if I was an employer, like, I wouldn't take this person on. Like, he was there 12 months, there 14 months. Like, what does this guy do? He basically just seems to get itchy feet after a year. And I could always explain my changes. Pretty much every single one was progression financially, responsibility. I was always moving up. And if I was maybe doing that a bit faster, or maybe not doing what I've done now and staying with somewhere long enough to do that within that company. But yeah, I try my hand at a few things and eventually find the things that fit.
Yeah.
But I have.
So then you left there, then what was
Pretty sure after that was Bristol Street, so going back into the motor trade.
What appealed that job then, the motor trade again, rather than going into leisure?
Kind of like going full circle. I'd had, 6.5, probably pushing 7 year in the leisure industry. Again, my passion wasn't really fitness as such. It was still, I still saw that as probably the parts of the job I enjoyed the most were like team members on tours and getting them to sign up, not the other bit that came with it. And so yeah, it was just going back full circle and really having my first job in a car garage that was on a proper car garage wage, like all of a sudden my basic levels compared to what it was. I'm getting 2 days off every week.
Living the life of luxury.
Getting your car and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, that was pretty much that. Working for Vauxhall, sales exec. And then what essentially happened there, I can't remember how long, maybe a couple of years, we'd gone through business manager after business manager after business manager. I think I'd worked under maybe like 3 or 4 business managers at the time. And I was always I'd started doing good numbers, and I started having that bit more responsibility without the responsibility. So like you were seen as the next in line, like the senior of the sales execs and things.
Always go to you, questions.
And yeah, I mean, there was a few good sales execs. Some had left and moved on to pastures new and are still there now. And then, yeah, I kind of thought I was next in line when we'd gone through these people and they hadn't decided to stick with it for various reasons. I thought I'm going to get that job next. And I was pretty much told I was. And then when I didn't, I just thought, do you know something? If I'm just going to be selling, I'm going to go and sell for a different brand. And that's when I went to Audi. And my time at Audi was so short-lived because essentially from the minute I left, all I had was senior people at Vauxhall ringing me up going, come back, come back, come back, come back.
Really?
We wish we'd made you BM.
Yeah.
So eventually, and I thought, other than that, I wouldn't have left Audi. It was like amazing brand, nice staff, showroom, everything like that. Lovely demos. But yeah, I went back to Vauxhall, had to go back on more training courses, like the one I told you about at the beginning where I was away for 4 days. Yeah. Because I'd left and it'd been like longer than, I think it was like X amount of weeks, and he was seen as like this new member of staff. So I had to go on like my sales exec training again. But then straight off the back of that, I had to do like my business manager training. So I was kind of I was still doing bits of selling, but in like working, doing the business manager's role at the same time. So, and if you don't know, like business manager, you're stacking and closing deals. So
what's that?
This is kind of like where you're building them on the finance, like, so you create the figures for a car. So someone's called you, I'm not looking for an Astra, but it's £300 a month and I've got £2,000 to put in. You're sitting there going, right, well,
I can make it work.
This is how we need to do this. And then ultimately you're the one with the tools to negotiate almost. Like the sales exec would always say, let me go and speak to my manager. When he says that's who he's going to speak to, the car garage. And it's amazing because if you just said to the sales exec before he went, by the way, you've got 20 quid a month to play with here. So if you need it, just close them there and then. Then them conversations probably wouldn't have to happen half the time.
Save time.
But what it is the business manager's egos, like, I closed that deal. It's like, well, yeah, but I would have if I'd just gone, no, have it all. Take it, you can have it. And that was what I knew the new car game in there well. I'd sold a lot of them. And yeah, and it was like that whole management thing there was an element of the ego where like you've got managing your job title again and that was that. And then Vauxhall, ended up on Volkswagen down the line. Yeah. I've jumped ahead there because I couldn't think of what happened at Vauxhall. So what happens as business manager, and this, I really should have known this better, but as a business manager in a dealership, you're no longer getting paid to sell the cars. You're getting paid for your sales execs to sell the cars. So you're only as strong as your weakest link sort of thing. You know, if
it's your team kind of thing.
If you've got, Bristol Street, you generally operated with about 9 sales execs. So it was almost impossible to 2 tables would be closing at the same time. And then next thing is like, you've gone to the, where's your customer? Oh, they walk. Like, I'm like, don't let them walk. They need to see me before they go. But you only got paid if the collective hit target. So that wasn't necessarily each individual hitting their 20 cars that month. There was a target behind the scenes that if everyone did that, you're almost guaranteed to get. But
as if everyone's sort of like 200 in a month.
If everyone just missed by, if everyone was at 80% of the time, you probably hit. And there was other targets in the background for like products, finance, pen, all that sort of stuff. And basically what ended up happening to me was I was earning less as a business manager than I'd earn as a sales exec.
Any commission and stuff.
And the selfishness in me kicked in and goes, I'd rather be back in control of my own destiny.
Rather than relying on them 9 people.
So I went to, and that was a point where I thought, well, I'm going to go back to a different brand again. So I was back to the Volkswagen Audi group, but this time with Volkswagen. And that was probably the shortest time I've stayed anywhere. Volkswagen as a brand, fantastic. The company and the management at the time that I was working under didn't see eye to eye. We didn't understand a lot of the ways. And this is probably where you go like, oh, what are people born as sales, or they think it coming in and not being like having your own mindset of how things should be done in that sense was probably a hindrance, because I'm like, why do you do this like this? This is stupid.
Yeah.
But again, that's a massive PLC, and I'm like, well, that's how we do it. Yeah. And I'm like, you're not speaking to some ducker gear after.
Yeah, it's just started. Yeah.
But they had the processes, and for me, they were ridiculous. They were stupid. And then I started, I met Michael, had a chat with Michael, and then walked over there to me.
How did that conversation come about then?
So one of my friends at the time was working for Michael. I'd been speaking to him just as friends do. I kind of mentioned how much I was hating where I was. And he says, you come here for a chat, And because how we operated back then, and probably how we'd operate with most people coming in to give it a go. Now it's like you're self-employed. So other than maybe in buying you a few business cards and a polo shirt or whatever, I mean, and in my polo shirt about him, but there was no real outlay. So like for him, it was kind of like, if you want to give it a go, give it a go. And quickly, we both quickly realized that, I could do it. Contract hire is a completely different finance product to anything I'd sold. So I was always like consumer based or no business based, but contract hire was business and personal, but it was like PCPs and HP and cash that I used to do in the dealerships.
Yeah.
So once I you still learn, but get your head around how contract hire worked. But then there was still people, we could still do PCP and we could still do, so I was kind of like, do everything I used to do and some more. And I was no longer affiliated to one brand. So I was working for a new car supplier as a broker, but with access to everything. So if you go back to using, say, like the Audi example, if you had a customer at your desk, Audi's maybe a bad example because Audi customers are very loyal, but generally speaking, if you've got a customer at your desk and they're looking at an A4, they will have at least looked at the 3 Cs.
The C-Class.
The C-Class. The Giant C. They've looked at its competitors, and ultimately they're going to probably drive them all, and then it'll boil down to which one they like the most, but also the price. So here, once I learned that, well, you want a new car, you're considering these 5, there's quotes on all 5 of them. Just let me know which one you want.
Yeah.
And really at that point you realize, well, actually now I just need to be really, really good, because the only objection this person can give me to not buy the car off me is I'm not buying the car. I'm not buying a car, because they can buy all of them off you. It's not all, but you don't do Merc, you don't do Jag. So yeah, that was that. And kind of plodded along, and now a few years down the line.
Yeah. Because was it just to say like that you could sell every car, or what else did you enjoy? Was it just that you could have your own style? There was no like systems or processes that you had to do, no 4-day training sessions or what? Yeah, what did you enjoy about the change in pace?
So we were still in this building, not this room, but we were just over the corridor there. So kind of I was like learning on the job. A friend who told me to come in for the chat, he was sat opposite us, so he was teaching me things that I didn't know, or telling me, or who I need to contact for this and whatnot. So kind of the training was as you went, it was like learning on the job, but it was also a conversation 3 meters away with someone. So there wasn't the rigmarole of having to download documents and read this and do this, and you could just learn there and then. For me, it was the first time ever in my life I'd had a Monday to Friday job with bank holidays off and weekends off. And it's amazing like how much, when you've been in retail or in car garages where you just expect to work long hours, pretty much most weekends, because that whole retail ethos is that's when we're going to be busiest. You definitely need to be in. You can have a Tuesday off, no bother. You need to be here on a Saturday. And so much so that you start actually buying into it yourself, and you think, if I'm not there, I'm not going to lose out on money. I'm going to miss out on sales. So that was mad. Coming into like a really small team that's family business to an extent, like an individual running a business who understands life, got kids of their own. That's been a massive factor the whole time. Like, that whole, like, sometimes when things come up and you feel like if you were employed, you can't phone in sick. Like, this isn't a good enough reason to be off. But it's like, I was like, oh, Sophia's not very well and blah, blah, I can't get, I'll fire the laptop up at home. Like,
go there.
What are you telling me for? Like, and it's not in a way that you can then take the mick, but knowing that it's not going to lead to an awkward conversation, because he would do the same and expect me to look after his phone calls and, but that's, I remember taking the job and I was going on holiday. So because I was leaving Volkswagen, I booked a holiday in March, April time, when you'd never be able to take a holiday in the motor trade because the new plate comes out. Yeah. So I'd booked the holiday. So I was kind of like, Tim, right, the minute I come back, I'll start. But then while I was over there, I had my mobile phone. I'd already started speaking to people about what I was doing. And it also made me realize, like, do the job anywhere. Yeah. Which again, if you want to do a work day from home, or come COVID, it's no wonder some businesses struggle. But for us, it was like, well, we don't need an office and we just need internet. We don't always speak to customers. We try and at least have 1 or 2 conversations, but so much of what we do is like emails, text, WhatsApp, it's just a different sort of way, less of a corporate structure to it, which, it definitely appeals. But over time, even we've developed and thought actually we do need these structures in place and, making sure we're doing the job properly and to hold each other accountable and whatnot.
Yeah. So how's your role, or how's the business kind of developed over time? Because obviously you've been here quite a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, so
things have changed. Like team members came and gone, and obviously COVID as well.
People came and went. We've given a few people a go that either weren't necessarily from the background, and I think both of us would admit now that if we were ever going to give someone else a go, they'd have to have come from at least a car sales or financy type background, because you talked about the natural ability. You don't actually realize how much better you are than someone who's never done it before. And that's not even me blowing my own trumpet. There's far more to take in than realizing you take it for granted because you already know it. Yeah. When you try to teach someone something, or even words to say, and trial clauses or things to add to the end of sentences to completely change the tone, or and some people just haven't got it, and no amount of teaching them would probably give them it. Then COVID obviously was massive in regards to the long-term impacts. It didn't really affect us in regards to how we ran as a business, because like I just said then, so much of what we do was internet-based, didn't need an office, just needed a laptop and a mobile phone. But what it did do was it caused knock-on effects with factory closures, which we are still, and this isn't even an exaggeration, we're still feeling the effects of now.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Yeah, the long lead times of new cars and stuff.
Well, this isn't written anywhere. It's just my opinion on it. What sort of happened is factories closed, but they were still taking orders. So then the factories are reopened, and they did this whole phased back thing because people were still doing social distancing in factories. They couldn't have a full capacity back. So then they're spending ages fulfilling all these pre-orders. And they kind of probably learn, actually, we're not spending as much on staff anymore. And we've put our prices of the cars up. So we're actually making more money now than we've ever made. Customers are still waiting for the cars.
And they know there's a long lead time.
And we're still just going to kind of keep that
trickling.
In the meantime, we're not making any less money. Now, why would you as a business ever change that model back to volume? Because it's amazing how many people see like your Volkswagens and your Kias and this, that and the other as like the volume brands. They're the cars that most people can afford, so there'll be more on the road. But it's amazing, like every car company wants to sell volume. There's only really your really prestige, like supercars and that aren't gonna ever be in that vein. And I just think that they've thought, oh, well, we're going away with this. Like, why would we ever go back to what we were?
It makes sense, doesn't it?
The only benefit of it would be servicing. That's the only way that they think if we have more cars on the road, there's more cars potentially going to come back here for a service. Yeah. But if they've already made up for that,
and increasing the prices,
then why would they? And that's just my outlook on it. Probably could be completely wrong than else, but we have COVID, so factory closures. Then we had like semiconductor chip issues where like I think some factory had burnt down and there was, I can't remember the exact stat now, but it was like one factory was responsible for something like 60% of the global production of this microchip.
Oh, I think
these microchips are in everything that's basically got a brain that's a computer, like that's your laptop, your mobile phone, your key fob for your battery in your car, everything at all that's got any sort of intelligence to it that's electric will have one of these chips in, or more. Cars might have 10s and 12s and that. So eventually got to the stage where all your cars were built, but they couldn't fit these chips. So then the compounds were getting full of cars that were 99.9% built, but were no good to anyone. Then you get brands like Audi going, oh, well, we've decided that you can now order this car, but we can't have a pan roof anymore because that'll save us a chip. And we're also going to deliver your brand new car with one key, not two, because that'll save us a chip, just to get the cars out the door.
Really?
And it was, that was mad. Then all this stuff happened with you. Sorry to play that down, but everything that happened with Ukraine and all your wiring looms are built there. So it's next thing, like, vans and commercial and cars, basically these wiring looms aren't getting made anymore or aren't being able to make their way back over to the factories for obvious reasons. And it's just been mad, and it's just been this really crazy sort of knock-on effect of everything that aren't linked but are linked. And it's
such a minor detail, isn't it, that can make such a big impact.
You wouldn't ever expect. And obviously, like I say, for me, I'm not complaining about it because people lost loved ones and whatnot during it all. So me complaining that my cars are taking a bit long would be a bit insensitive, but it has been so weird. Really. And then we look back and we go, right, the company's sort of around 6, don't know the exact date, but around 6. I've been here for 4.5 of that. So more than 50% of my time with the company has been at the back end of a pandemic. And almost 50% of the whole time the company's been in existence, it's been in the pandemic and aftermath. And you think, do you know something? We've done bloody well. Like, we're still here.
They're alive.
Yeah, we're still alive.
Food on the table.
Plenty of other businesses aren't. They fell by the wayside. And you feel sorry for them. But then again, the selfishness in you goes, I'm just glad it's not us. And
you've got to be there, haven't we?
We're all still, taking a wage. And it's not like we're pleading poverty.
Because this is like the first year, isn't it, where it hasn't been like COVID impacted.
Yeah, so I think
last year it was, wasn't it?
First calendar, so that was 2022. Well, because you think that 20, it really, as much as it's called 19, it really didn't kick in until
like March, wasn't it?
Through 2020. And then there has to have at least been a couple of solid years of it. 2023. Maybe it's things were a lot more back to normal last year, but there was still knocking. You still see signs of that everywhere, like social distance and that.
I remember I went to Dubai for my birthday last year. And you start to wear masks everywhere and stuff. And you think, and when I went to like Marbella in like May, you start to wear masks and that, and you think,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I'm not a real big conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but there's so many unanswered questions with that. That's another podcast
So then let's talk about the promotion. How did that come about then? Because obviously you've been here fucking ages and from your standards.
From my standards, yeah. It's coming up to in line with my longest one now. That's what she said.
How did that conversation come about or whatever? Or was it in the pipeline for a while?
Yes and no. The first time it was ever brought up was a few years ago. I think it was at a Christmas party one year. Michael had a few drinks. And he just got put to bed. I think that must have been like 2020. I think he maybe could start going out around Christmas time that year. So we got a Christmas party or maybe, anyways, whenever that was.
Let's not talk about COVID anymore.
I think it's just recent. We just sort of sat down, what me and Michael have done. And we've always just had really kind of easy conversations about pay structure, responsibilities, things like that. And 9 times out of 10, he'll go, right, you tell me what you think. I'll tell him what I think. And then he goes, right, well, this is what I thought. And so these are similar. This is a bit different. And we do that annually unless something had came up to trigger a conversation earlier on. And it was just that time where we were due to have that conversation again. Because it all comes from the fact that I went employed in that sort of that April in 2019.
Yeah, before COVID.
No, it was after July 2000. And it was when we came back to work. So we were allowed to start coming back in the office. Yeah, it was about July 19 that we could start using the office and that again. Yeah. But as long as you did social distance and all that, all COVID to get the shit. So it was kind of like, it was the anniversary of that date. So we sit down, we start talking about things again. And a lot's changed in regards to staff. And so basically, as it stands right now, people taking a direct wage out of the company through payroll is me and Michael. So you kind of look at that and you go, right, well, the amount of work we're going to do is the same. There's just now less of us. So I'm kind of like saying, well, my responsibilities, I'm going to have to pick up the slack elsewhere. And Michael's also, he's a bit of an entrepreneur. So he's not just, his sole focus isn't just this.
He's taking on other bits.
So it's kind of like coming up with a way of making me feel not wanted, but like
for value.
Yeah, a bit of value, and also that like we're here for the long haul. And I need to be able to know that.
No, your worth. You need to know your worth as well.
I need to know my worth, and he needs to kind of know that I'm incentivizing you enough that if I'm not here, you will be. And for example, when you were self-employed, if it was 2:00 in the afternoon and you didn't have much more on, you just I'm employed.
Yeah.
And that now that I'm employed, I've never done that anyway. But it just reaffirms it. And I say with changes that were going on, we're kind of looking at the way the company's going to operate, what the forecasts are going forward. And yeah, we just kind of restructured things slightly. So it might be a fancy job title, but ultimately my day-to-day life is still very, very similar. I just have to do bloody podcasts now.
Fuck's sake.
No. But yeah, no, it's like I say, job titles changed. Day-to-day running of the business is still very, very similar. And we've just tweaked my pay structure too.
So then, what are the plans for the new job title? Now you say you're doing the same but different kind of thing. But what are you wanting to do in the near future or in the far future?
I think sort of in the short term, without trying to sound like I'm sucking up too much, I want to make sure that it works for both of us, and make sure he knows that when he doesn't need to be here, he doesn't need to be here because he's got. Yes, I'm not alongside him because I don't own the company. I'm not shareholder or anything like that. I'm still beneath him, but I've got enough responsibility and enough. Even, when you get a phone call, it's like, we want to speak to the sales. I can have that conversation now and take that off him, and without him, I needed to take that call.
Yes.
And yeah, just he knows that he can come and go, and he's got like someone alongside him for the long haul that he can trust. And then down the line, who knows? Obviously, if things keep going the way they're going, and there was scope to have like an equity stake, like a shareholder in the business, that would be fantastic as well. And I think when that eventually happens as well, it'll like reinvigorate you again, because it's like
the next step.
That's like I now want, or
then you're financially invested in it.
Exactly. And to the productivity of the company, it's going to directly reflect your bank balance in 2, 3, 4, 5, wherever it might be. So I think that would be natural progression. And we've spoke about it. It's not something that it's just going to come out of the blue. It's just not something we're doing right now.
Yes. Cool. Exciting. So then let's talk about biggest mistakes, biggest regrets. What did you have down? Oh, we've already spoken about it.
Yeah. So, I touched on the move from lifestyle to Bannatyne to lifestyle. I do think that was like a too much of a sideways step. And in hindsight, if I could go back and not really one for regretting things as such, but if you could go back and change things, I probably would do that. Other mistakes, obviously before I made like loads of mistakes. A lot of my mistakes are just solely on like a personal level, and we won't go into too much detail about that. I guess as well, like you kind of rolled the dice maybe a little bit on that whole Vauxhall to Audi move. If I just had maybe took a step back and calmed myself down and thought, well, just ride it out again. The next business manager will come and go. Like I'll get it next time.
Yeah.
But then at what point do you draw the line? You know, you kind of say, I don't regret that. I wouldn't say that was, I actually think it was the right move to do at the time because it forced the other hand. The only negative there was it just added this bloody 4 months trouble on my CV that you go, what's this?
It's hindsight as well, isn't it?
Life's easy. Do you know, if you knew the outcome of every scenario prior to it happening, it'd just be, well, what's the point? Like, again, we've talked about it. We're still relatively young. I could probably, if I really wanted to right now, I could have a completely different career change again.
Yeah.
I could probably still do something for
plenty of time.
40 year.
Yeah.
And like life's too short to be unhappy or to dwell on stuff. But everything happens for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
If it's meant to be, it'll pan out. If it's not, you'll make your mind up. A proper thought.
And what do you think your biggest strength is and your biggest weakness? Did I prep you for these ones? I think I did, didn't I?
I didn't prep myself. I would say one of my biggest weaknesses is talking. Like sometimes I get that I'm that adamant that I know what's going to come out of someone's mouth that like I'll kind of try and answer the question before it's
like butt into them.
Yeah, but talk over people sometimes. I can be quite less so in the workplace. Less so in front of customers. I can have quite a short fuse sometimes as well. Leanne will vouch for that at times. But yeah, I think that's not taking a step back and just listening to what's going on. And, you know, and I'm probably better for that in like my personal life than I am in like a salesy life.
That's interesting.
I'm as much as I can go like on a tangent sometimes. I'm quite a chilled out person really. And then I can just
into it.
At the flick of a switch. Strengths, I would definitely say I'm strong at empathy. I don't know, like I can sort of read situations, which is actually I'm almost saying that my weakness was my strength, but I think I'm good at getting on different people's levels quite easily. So like if I could hold myself in a room full of affluent politicians as much as I could the rugby lads down the pub, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that whole in sales, yes, you've got to be yourself, but yes, you've got to have the ability to mirror people,
be relatable,
and without being unprofessional. If a customer's being quite colloquial with you on the phone, like it probably gives you a little bit of authority to be that back. Yeah, and just like if that customer's very much to the point, well-mannered and well-spoken. You've got to
no banter.
Yeah, it's like you sometimes get your blokes on from Buckington and that, and it's mad at this and mad at that.
Like you're saying as well.
Yeah, and like and they probably don't want like loads of airs and graces. Again, you still remain professional. You're not calling them C-bombing them or out, but yeah, it's mirroring people, and I think that's really important in sales. Without in who you are, so you're not becoming something that you're not. And without pushing the boundary too far where you've gone way too much onto their level, just because your customer's comfortable doesn't mean you should drop your standards. Yes, I definitely say that's a strength.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Right, so where can people find you, follow you personally, business-wise and everything? So
personally, please don't follow me. I get scared looking over my shoulder and that all the time. Down dodgy lanes, especially around Rickety Park. Scott Reynolds. So I'm on social media as Scott Reynolds on Facebook. On my LinkedIn profile, Scott Reynolds as well. Instagram, I think it's sort of like Scott Ray 2906. So that goes back to like Trinity. We used to get given your logins for your thing, like your first 5 letters of your first name and your last 3 of your stuff. So that like it just stuck with us ever since. So Scott Ray, Scott Ray 2906. I think that's the same on Instagram as it is on Twitter. Don't really do much on Twitter apart from refresh to see if Harry Kane's left. And then social, obviously the company, issuenewcar.co.uk is the website for the car leasing deals, business and personal. And then the flexi rental is the new baby. It's a few year old now, but pushing it wise, it's a new baby. And that's for all your short term mid to long term commercial vehicles predominantly on a sort of like a even non-status sort of basis. So you don't necessarily have to have a whiter than white credit to take on those if you're a business owner or a new start business. Couriers, we have a lot of couriers use those as well. So yeah, not really taken off.
Nice. Right, everyone, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment your favourite part. Any questions for Scott, leave them in the comment section below. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a 5-star review. We'll see you next time. Bye, 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 bye.
Thank you. Bye.